Welcome back to the channel. Sorry, it's been a while since I posted. We just actually moved outside Edmonton and my new job has me working crazy hours. So I actually finally found a time in the last 3 weeks to make this video. So let's get going. Make sure you hit the sub button as we are going for 207 away. Really appreciate it, guys. And today we are talking about a trade that happened in the 2014-2015 season. It was the Jeff Petry trade to the Montreal Canadiens. So as we could see now, let's go from the trade tree. So the Edmonton Oilers traded Jeff Petry to the Montreal Canadiens for a second round pick in 2015 and a fourth round pick in 2015. Now, that's not where the trade tree ends, as the Oilers would swap the second, a third, and a seventh for Cam Talbot and a seventh, and then Talbot would go to Philly for Stolarz, and Edmonton would get a seventh round draft pick. So eventually, after everything worked out, it was Petry for a fourth and a seventh, basically. We all know what Petry has been doing in Montreal, and Montreal's a team I'll watch if the Oilers aren't on, just because my grandpa's a huge fan of them. And just watching how Petry has turned out, he's turned out to a pretty solid player. You look at the the bubble playoffs this year, Petry was a huge part of them actually being in the Pittsburgh Penguins, and so on and so forth. Now you might ask, well, why are we talking about this? Well, when the trade happened, everyone thought, Montreal won this trade. Montreal won this trade. But now that we're 6 years past the trade, we actually see what we have, because draft picks don't, fourth round draft picks, second round draft picks don't usually come straight to the NHL. They take their time, they develop, especially defensemen. And that's where we got one of our defensemen from, was that fourth round pick. But with the seventh round pick, we got Pageant. He's a defenseman that's playing in the KHL. He played a few seasons in Bakersfield, didn't really turn out. He's in the KHL right now, 21 games played, 7 points, 8 penalty minutes. He's a 6-foot defenseman, 213 pounds. A left-handed shot that the Oilers took a gamble on. He's 25 years old now, probably not going to make the Oilers anymore. He's probably just going to stay in the KHL, all said and done. Now with that fourth round pick, we selected Caleb Jones in the 2015 deal. Now, if no one really knew who Jones was, we knew he was the brother of Seth Jones, up and coming star defenseman that could play. Speaking of Caleb Jones, there he is. Up and coming defenseman, but no one knew what his brother had in store. So now you go, well, okay, we know what Caleb Jones has done. So let's go look into Caleb Jones a little bit more in depth here. In 18-19, he played 17 games for the Edmonton Oilers. He had 6 points, 6 penalty minutes, -9. A rookie defenseman coming in the league, you can't complain about that. Well then, in 2019-2020, hey look, we got this stellar kid in the AHL named Caleb Jones, who has 11 points in 14 games. He's a +4, or he's a -5 with 4 penalty minutes. Let's bring him up to be the 6th, 7th defenseman for the injuries that we have on the blue line. So Caleb Jones played 43 games last season. He had 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. He had 10 penalty minutes, which isn't bad for a rookie defenseman, making basically a season out of what he had. The thing that got me was he was a -1. And in the playoffs, he was a plus-minus of 0. So now you're revisiting this trade that happened 6 years ago, when everyone's saying, well, you didn't get enough for Petry, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm pretty sure the Edmonton Oilers have won this trade. You took a guy that was in the NHL for, let's go look at Petry stats here, since 2010. So Petry is 32 years old. He would have been 26 at the time that we draft, 26, 27 at the time when we drafted Caleb Jones. And like I said, Petry's not doing terrible with the Montreal Canadiens. He's doing what he couldn't do in Edmonton. Like last season, he had 40 points. The season before, he had 46. The season before that, 42. Then he had 28, 16. But with Edmonton, he was only getting 12, 17, 15, right? So I'm just saying is, a lot of people at that time said, well, Edmonton lost that trade. Well, look at what we have now and how Caleb Jones has solidified himself as a guy that can play in the NHL. And he's coming off that new contract he just signed earlier this year. He can be that guy that is the third pairing defenseman until he gets a bit stronger, gets a more hockey sense of playing in the NHL. He can move to that. Sorry, I'm all stuffed up here. He can move to that second line pairing, and he has a mentor in Chris Russell. Chris Russell has taken him. He took Benning under his wing, and those two guys, believe it or not, had the better plus minus. They had better numbers statistically than anyone else on the Edmonton Oilers roster in the past 2 seasons, and that's, I'm going to say, a huge credit to Chris Russell for mentoring them. Some has to do with the coaching, and what a nice play there by McDavid Dennis. But on the other hand, we don't know what we have because Petry was basically, Petry wasn't terrible in Edmonton, but if you're comparing Petry to Jones at their ages in Edmonton, Petry is way worse than Jones is. Even if you go by the points, Jones has proved that he is better than Petry. So if you take everything off of what the trade is and just go with that fourth round pick, which was Caleb Jones for Jeff Petry, Edmonton wins that all day. Now you do have the argument that Petry's been putting up 40 points, but Petry's 32 already. We don't know yet if Caleb Jones will do that. He's in the right direction for sure, and you never know, is he might become like his brother and actually be able to shoot the puck on net a lot more, and depending on what circumstances you put him in. So let me know your thoughts if you guys still think Montreal won that trade. But I believe the Edmonton Oilers did just because of who they got. And yeah, Petry has put up 40 plus points in 3+ seasons. But you also have to look, he's playing with Shea Weber, which is a shooting mentality defenseman his own. So let me know, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.